the century of humiliation, how the past shapes China's future, how the 19th century forever transformed China. Welcome to Histox. Let's uncover the stories they'd rather keep quiet about. China, one of the world's most ancient civilizations, was once the center of global power, and now it's determined to reclaim that status in the 21st century. When asked whether China will be the superpower of this century, historian Niall Ferguson responded without hesitation, of course. China has been the superpower in every century, except the 19th. That missing century still haunts China's collective memory. It was a period of profound humiliation, foreign domination, and internal collapse. To truly understand modern China, we need to revisit that painful chapter. For thousands of years, China saw itself as the heart of the world. Even its name, Zhongguo, the Middle Kingdom, reflects this worldview. Surrounded by mountains, deserts, jungles, and oceans, the Chinese Empire remained largely isolated, uninterested in the barbarian lands beyond. But in 1793, the walls began to crack. Emperor Qianlong of the Qing Dynasty received a diplomatic mission from Britain, led by George Macartney, who came on behalf of the British East India Company. His goal? To open China to Western trade. The Chinese court, however, was unimpressed. Macartney's refusal to perform the traditional kowtow, kneeling and touching his head to the floor, symbolized a deeper misunderstanding between East and West. The emperor dismissed Britain's requests. In an official letter to King George III, he made it clear China had everything it needed. Foreign goods were unnecessary. The British weren't satisfied with that answer. They had an insatiable appetite for Chinese silk, tea, and porcelain, and were bleeding silver to pay for it. Since China didn't want British goods, London found another export, opium. Sourced from British-controlled India, opium quickly became a highly addictive scourge across China. As addiction spread, the Qing government cracked down, seizing and destroying tons of the drug in the port of Cantonal, Guangzhou. In response, British warships attacked, sparking the First Opium War. The result was a humiliating defeat. In 1842, aboard the HMS Cornwallis, China was forced to sign the Treaty of Nanking. Hong Kong was handed over to Britain, and more ports were opened to foreign trade. It was the beginning of a long series of unequal treaties. China was no longer in control of its own destiny. Worse was yet to come. When China tried to resist further Western interference, the Second Opium War, 1856 to 1860, broke out. This time, France joined Britain. Beijing was invaded. The majestic summer palace was looted and burned. China was forced to legalize opium and open even more ports. As China faced off with Britain and France, it was also coerced by Russia. The 1858 Treaty of Aigun forced China to surrender massive lands in the northeast, granting the Russian Empire new trading privileges in Manchuria. All this happened as the Qing dynasty struggled with internal turmoil. A ballooning population of 400 million faced worsening poverty and land shortages. Rebellions and small-scale civil wars further weakened the empire, just as foreign powers were circling like wolves around a wounded animal. Some within the Qing court recognized the need to modernize, but their efforts were crushed by corruption, fear of change, and short-sighted priorities. Empress Dowager Cixi, the de facto ruler at the end of the 19th century, infamously diverted military funds to rebuild the Summer Palace, complete with a grand marble boat, an ironic symbol of naval neglect. While China clung to its traditions, nearby Japan was transforming. Through the Meiji Restoration, Japan embraced Western science, military strategies, and political structures. In 1894, it turned its gaze toward Korea, then a vassal state of China, and declared war. The First Sino-Japanese War ended in another devastating loss for China. Taiwan and the Penghu Islands were ceded to Japan, and Korea slipped from China's grip. These repeated humiliations sparked outrage across China. In 1900, the anti-foreign, anti-Christian Boxer Rebellion erupted. Backed by the Qing court, the Boxers attacked foreigners and Chinese Christians. An international coalition of 8 powers crushed the rebellion, further weakening China's sovereignty. But amid the chaos, a new vision was emerging. One led by modernizers like Sun Yat-sen, a physician-turned-revolutionary. Sun believed in a republic free of imperial rule and foreign dominance. He wanted to uplift China's peasants and transformed the country into a modern state. In 1911, revolution swept the nation. The Qing dynasty fell. After over 2 millennia of imperial rule, China became a republic. Sun briefly became president, but soon handed power to General Yuan Shikai, a powerful warlord who would rule like an emperor. Even after Yuan's death, China remained fractured, torn between regional warlords, foreign powers, and rival ideologies. Tibet and Mongolia broke away. The dream of a unified modern China would have to wait. For China, the century of humiliation isn't just history, it's a foundational narrative. The losses to Britain, Japan, and other powers, the looting of treasures, the opium addiction, and the collapse of imperial order all left deep scars. Today's leaders often invoke that era to justify national revival, military modernization, and their assertive global stance. For them, rebuilding China's greatness isn't just a goal, it's a restoration of what was lost. As the Qing dynasty fell and the Republic of China was declared in 1912, hope was in the air, but it would be short-lived. Though Sun Yat-sen was the symbolic father of the revolution, real power fell into the hands of General Yuan Shikai. He quickly revealed his true intentions, declaring himself emperor just a few years later. His rule was short and chaotic. By the time he died in 1916, China had descended into warlordism. Its provinces ruled like separate kingdoms by regional military commanders, each with their own armies, flags, and ambitions. The central government in Beijing was weak, fragmented, and powerless to stop the disintegration. This period of division and civil strife deepened the suffering of the Chinese people. Famine, banditry, and brutal local conflicts became part of daily life. Foreign powers, sensing weakness, tightened their grip. Japan, already emboldened by its earlier victory, began making further demands, especially during World War I, when the West's attention was focused elsewhere. In 1919, a pivotal event took place. The Treaty of Versailles awarded Germany's former colonies in China to Japan. This betrayal by the Western Allies sparked massive protests across the country. Led by students and intellectuals, known as the May 4th movement, it was more than a political protest. It was a cultural awakening. Young Chinese began to question everything: Confucian traditions, imperial values, and even Western democracy. What they wanted was a new China, strong, independent, and modern. Out of this turmoil rose 2 competing visions for China's future: the Kuomintang KMT, or Nationalist Party, and the newly formed Communist Party of China CPC. The KMT, founded by Sun Yat-sen and later led by Chiang Kai-shek, envisioned a modern republic built on Chinese nationalism and central authority. The Communists, inspired by the Russian Revolution, believed true liberation would only come through revolution and the empowerment of peasants and workers. At first, they tried to cooperate, but by the late 1920s, the fragile alliance broke down. Chiang launched a bloody purge against communist forces, sparking a civil war that would rage on and off for decades. While the KMT and communists fought for control, a new threat was emerging from the east. Japan, now a full-fledged imperial power, invaded Manchuria in 1931, setting up a puppet state called Manchukuo. The League of Nations protested, but did nothing. Emboldened, Japan launched a full-scale invasion of China in 1937. The brutality of this war shocked the world, especially during the Nanjing Massacre, where hundreds of thousands of civilians were killed by Japanese forces. Once again, China found itself at the mercy of foreign occupation, and once again, its people paid the price. But this time, something had changed. Both the nationalists and the communists put aside their differences, temporarily, to resist the Japanese invasion. Guerrilla warfare, mass mobilization, and foreign support, especially from the US after Pearl Harbor, helped China survive, though, at a terrible cost. When World War II ended in 1945, China stood bloodied but unbowed. However, the fragile alliance between communists and nationalists quickly fell apart. A brutal civil war resumed, culminating in 1949 with a communist victory. On October 1st of that year, Mao Zedong stood atop Tiananmen Gate in Beijing and declared the founding of the People's Republic of China. The nationalists, defeated, fled to the island of Taiwan, where they established a rival government that still exists today. For modern China, The 19th and early 20th centuries remain a powerful reminder of what happens when the nation is weak, divided, or unprepared. The century of humiliation isn't just a historical term, it's a warning, a rallying cry, and a justification for the policies of national unity, economic development, and military modernization seen today. It's why leaders in Beijing invest billions in high-speed rail, aerospace, and artificial intelligence. It's why they pour resources into a powerful Navy and space program. And it's why they respond so forcefully to any perceived threat to China's territorial integrity, from Taiwan to the South China Sea. In the eyes of Chinese leadership, the age of subjugation is over. The 21st century will not be a repeat of the 19th. It will be the century of China. China remembers, and it rises, not just to reclaim power, but to reclaim dignity. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more fascinating history content.